Once again, a big thanks to Kennedy Garland and welcome back to The Beat Goes On. And before we talk to our special guest, we have winners to announce from last week's show. 3 lucky viewers entered the magic words Song of the Week and won themselves a copy of Grumpy Old Men. From the draw, Neil Wells, Tekuiti, Yvonne Guilford, Tauranga, and Elizabeth Larkin from Glendean in Auckland. If you didn't win a copy this week, you'll have another chance in just a moment. Paul Little, our special guest, will be giving away 3 more copies. Next week we have the Liprinol winners, both email and snail's mail. But congratulations to tonight's 3 winners and stand by your letterboxes. And right now it's time for that time when we talk to our special guest. Tonight's special guest is Paul Little. Paul has been the editor of The Listener, Metro Magazine, and he now turns his hand to publishing. His brand new book is Grumpy Old Men. It's in all good bookstores this week, and we thought it time to meet Paul and find out how he selected 47 rather happy men to be grumpy. We welcome Paul Little as our special guest on The Beat Goes On. It's a big welcome to our special guest, Paul Little.
Thanks very much, Jared.
Now, all around New Zealand, Paul, people are saying, who's Paul Little? Who is this Paul Little? And I've got the answer. He's the man that's put together Grumpy Old Men, and I came to hear about it because Shane, who was on, does our Song of the Week. There it is there. Ladies and gentlemen, we can see the word Shane. So you obviously met Shane and corresponded with him, and he ended up in one of the pages of this wonderful book, Grumpy Old Men.
That's exactly right. In fact, it was a bit of a treat for me because I'd never met Shane. I'd met a lot of the other men in the book, and I'd met a lot of the other musicians, but never him. And actually, Dorothy Dudek-Vinicum, who co-compiled the book with me, and whose idea it actually was in the first place, she brought it to me, and then I sort of took over the publishing and organising, and she looked after some of the guys, and I looked after some of the others. She got in touch with Shane, and I was just thrilled when he agreed to do it. And then, in order to promote the book and get some exposure for it, we shot a few clips last week for YouTube, and Shane was one of the guys who agreed to do it, and there he was. He opened the door looking just the way he did what feels like, was it 80, 90 years ago? and he was just a delight. It was really lovely to meet him, and most of the other guys in the book have been a lot of fun to work with too. So
Shane brought it in last week.
Really?
Yeah. And he had told me about it, and I said, well, who put this together? And he said, Paul Little, and I said, well, why don't we get Paul on the show? And you're sitting here as a result of last week him being in the show. And we actually gave away 3 copies, but I think we'll probably give away some more today.
Oh, definitely. Yeah,
I'm sure there's a budget there somewhere for 3 books.
Yeah, I think we can spare another 3 books. Shane was one of the names when I told people about the book. They went, really?
Is he still alive?
Because they were too polite to actually say that. But one of the delights of the book, I think, is the variety of people we've got in there, and one of the pleasures of putting it together was how quickly most of the guys said yes. There are people who are really well known, and then there are people who were well known, but people might not have thought about for years, like Chris Amon, the racing car driver, and all of us of that age remember Chris Amon and his exploits. Shane is like that. And then you've got people who sort of ticked along all the way through, like Tony Astle, the chef, or Kevin Milne, who everybody remembers.
Well, Tony's on the show as well. So
Tony's great entertaining talent.
But look, Grumpy Old Men, I would like to think this is a baby boomer chat show, and we're aiming at older men, of course. Anyone on the right side of 50, I'd like to think we're all happy. Grumpy Old Men, is that what we've been reduced to, Grumpy Old Men?
Well, I think one of the things that that I had to explain to people was that to be part of this book, you didn't have to be, psychopathically grumpy. But most of us, if we put our minds, we've got something that drives us crazy one way or another. John Hawkesby has about 30 things that drive him crazy. Other people have one thing that drive them crazy. I've got a couple of things that drive me crazy, but I don't think I'm a grumpy person. I quite enjoy being grumpy sometimes. Sometimes I think you just have to be when 6 things in a row get in your way during an afternoon. But it's not the way you are permanently. Of course.
Well, honestly, there's only one thing that gets me grumpy. I thought about it. What am I grumpy about? The only thing I'd ever walk down Queen Street for, holding a placard, would be as an anti-global warmist or an anti-climate change person.
If you do get to a certain age and you're not not grumpy about something, then you probably haven't been paying very close attention to what's going on around you. Because the other thing about grumpiness is that's how things get fixed. If you think things are fine, then things just go on, and you get entropy and things actually falling to pieces, and people go, oh, never mind, it's
well,
fine.
you could have
so get your dander up from time to time.
But you have a great point there that if you're not grumpy about something, you haven't lived, because the world isn't perfect. So all these people here, believe it or not, I bet none of them actually picked the same thing to be grumpy about.
There were a couple that sort of overlapped, but the best thing about it was the variety. For instance, a lot of these people I'd worked with, like interviewed as a journalist, or Ray had written his book. Others I'd encountered one way or another, or they'd interviewed me, or vice versa. And Ian Grant was in that category, and he's just the loveliest man. Most people, everybody who's met him will tell you that. And even, he's reasonably conservative. It has absolutely no effect on how he relates to people or who he gets on with. So I asked him, and I actually thought he might be one of the people who said, "Oh, I'm just far too happy and delighted, and in love with life and the world." But he agreed immediately. And the thing that he was grumpy about was churches where they play music that it's hard to sing along to. And I thought, well, that was just eccentric enough for me to know that, if we had a few more people come out with things like that, then definitely we were going to have a very good book.
Paul, if you'd put yourself in the book, would you have had a grumpy little couple of pages?
Yeah, I could go on. Well, actually, I have a column in the Herald on Sunday, every Sunday, funnily enough, and effectively it's a bit like that. It's supposed to be about events of the week and commentary on them, and I try to keep it like that. But I realised not so long ago that what it's really about is stupidity, because I just look around and when I see something happening that I think is really stupid, then I'm lucky because I get the chance to say so 600 words a week. But beyond those sorts of things, one of the things that really upsets me to see happening, and I see it happening quite a lot with young people too, but also with older people, is when people have a talent that they won't use. Because I think if you're good at anything, you're so lucky, because so many people aren't good at anything. So many people just haven't been blessed in that way. But I know a lot of talented teachers or performers or musicians or actors who just won't do it because they're worried about failing or for various other reasons that they invent for themselves. And I just think we miss out on so much.
But look, before we go any further, you've made a couple of mentions about who Paul Little is, but let's start off number one. You're on the right side of 50?
I'm 56. Yeah.
You're a baby boomer.
Yeah, I was just snuck in at the end. Yeah,
welcome to the club.
Just old enough to remember going to see A Hard Day's Night at the Pictures.
That's wonderful. And so, what's the history of Paul Little? Journalist? We heard journalist. We've heard columnist.
Journalist by accident a little bit, I guess. I grew up in Auckland, went to regular school, did a BA, did an MA. I actually went to law school for a week. I'm quite good at making quick decisions when I know they're the right ones, so I left law school after the first 5 days. Basically moved to Australia with my first wife in 1987 and had to get a job, and got a great job as something called the chief sub-editor eventually, first sub-editor, at the Australian Women's Weekly, which is a really big, powerful, monolithic Australian thing. Yeah, so it was part of the culture. I learnt so much about journalism and how to do stuff and how to run magazines. So by the time I was ready to come back home in 92, I was able to get a job at The Listener as assistant editor. Then I became editor of that, editor of Metro.
So you were an editor of The Listener? That's a prestigious...
Yep. No, it was good. I was very lucky to get that. And again, I was learning a lot. And with publishing this book myself, it's about that learning thing. I think the thing that keeps us young in the right ways, is new challenges. And as long as you're learning something and discovering things, then you're going to stay as young as you can on the right side of 50. I'm just really interested in seeing what you can do with books in a time when books are under tremendous challenges and publishing companies are closing or folding or combining. And I know that reading's not going to go away. I know that books aren't going to go away, but traditional publishing is going away. So I just like to be in there and see if I can be part of whatever's new.
Will we ever leave the wonderful feeling, look, I'm handling this book and I'm touching it and feel it, and I just can't believe it's ever going to go completely. Well, I know that e-books are going to be big, but there's still something, the smell of paper, and it's wonderful, isn't it?
It's funny, isn't it? It's not, they're definitely not going to go away. They're going to, some things are going to happen to them that you can predict quite safely. Also, I'm making my books e-books, and this book is ready to go as an ebook, and I can't quite. It's one of those things. I haven't quite got around to doing it yet, and I think that's my personal preference for paper.
You want
books.
to see it in this form.
Yeah,
That's
but
what
it's
we
all ready
grew
to
up.
upload to the big American website that'll turn it into an ebook for me, and I'll probably do that this afternoon or later on, or when I go home. But the other thing is having books will become more special. They'll be better produced. They'll be more lavish and presented better because they will become slightly rarer. Never rare. There'll always still be millions of books around. But it was important to me that we make this book look as good as it possibly could, because really, a book called Grumpy Old Men with 47 guys going on about what bugs them, didn't really have the potential for it to be a great, visually interesting book. But I think we've got a lovely cover, and we've got some nice illustrations by my stepson. There's a fair bit of family affair going on in there too.
So who's going to buy this book? Father's Day's coming up. It's a great little gift, isn't it? I think. It is available in all good bookstores. Yeah, it's
available.
Not bad ones, but good bookstores.
Just where you can tell a good bookstore, because they'll have that pretty close to the front door. Not too close that it's easy to steal. It's been timed to come out for Father's Day. I think it'll go through to Christmas Day, because it's only been officially out for a few days now, but I've had lovely feedback so far. And strangely, I posted on Facebook today, a lot of people say, this would have been a great book for my dad if he was still alive. So, I'm urging people, please, if your father's still around, you don't want to spend your years regretting the fact that you never got him this book for Father's Day.
But let's not just get stuck on that for Father's Day. Let's say it's a perennial book that it's a lovely gift idea all year, and it's the sort of book, we've seen lots of these books that you can pick this up. You don't have to read it right from start to finish, but you say, here's Dave Dobbin. I wonder what he's grumpy about.
That was very important to me.
Here's Brian Edwards. I wonder what he's grumpy about, and Graham Dingle. Barry Coleman. Roy Colbert. I'm just going through them now. So what about giving away 3 books?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Yes. Now, I know we've already done it before, but that was with Shane. Where is this book available?
All good bookstores.
All good bookstores. So email Jared at The Beat Goes On. In the subject line in the email, just put all good bookstores. We'll put them all in the big hat and make a draw. And then we've got 3 more of these books to give away. And what a wonderful night it was on the night of the launch. A good crowd. Enjoyed that?
I was so excited. I spent the days before the launch absolutely regretting that I even started the whole thing, because it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. But I just took that as a lovely gesture of faith from the guys in the book, that so many of them came along.
Turned up for the launch.
And they had a really good time together.
They had a good time. Now, Paul, we always ask, what's the next one? That's put to bed now. You're planning a new one, or is it embargoed until...
No, I'm quite happy to tell you. I'm very lucky. David Fisher, who has written all the big stories for the Herald about Kim.com, is finishing a Kim.com book that we'll have out for Christmas. So got a lot of interest and excitement. And believe me, there's stuff in there that even the GCSB doesn't know. It's going to be terrific.
What a great project. How'd you get hold of that? That's a wonderful...
I asked him.
You asked him.
A lot of things in life,
If you don't
it's
ask,
the simple
you don't
stuff.
get.
Yep.
Kim.com's coming out with a book. Is there a title yet?
It's called The Secret Life of Kim.com.
That's going to be a winner. Gosh, that's a great project. Paul, we're going to see you again on the show telling us about The Secret Life of Kim.com.
I look forward to that. Thanks, Jared.
Okay.